Notice of non-renewal of lease agreement. Use this form to notify tenants that the lease will not be renewed and that the tenants must vacate the premises upon a specific date. GUR 13. Notice to terminate lease agreement. Due to material noncompliance. This notice gives the tenant 5 days to either remedy the breach or, if the breach is not remedied, serves as a 5-day notice of the termination of the lease. Certified mail constitutes legal delivery of the notice. 08-12. Notice to terminate lease agreement. Due to material noncompliance affecting health and safety. This notice gives the tenant 10 days to either cure the breach or, if the breach is not curable, serves as a 10-day notice of the termination of the lease. Certified mail constitutes legal delivery of the notice. 08-12. Notice to immediately terminate lease agreement. Due to material and irreparable noncompliance. Notifies the tenant of immediate termination of lease agreement upon receipt of the notice. Certified mail constitutes legal delivery of the notice. 08-12. Notice to tenant of management termination. Used to provide the tenant with notice that the property management company will no longer be managing the property the tenant is leasing, and provide instructions on where to send future payments, notices, and repair requests. EU813. On-site wastewater treatment facility addendum. A disclosure to the buyer that an on-site wastewater treatment facility exists on the property and outlines what information and in what timeframes the buyer will receive from the seller. Reverend Saris 1006. Pre-qualification form, to be completed by the lender. The form is not property specific and was developed to provide information on the buyer's ability to qualify for a loan. Reverend 0213. Property management agreement. This form should assist property managers to clearly and unambiguously set forth the rights and obligations of the broker and the owner. Chio Noit Takta 10. Real estate agency disclosure and election, used by agents with either buyers or sellers. It describes the different types of agency relationships, seller, buyer, limited dual, and offers a section for the seller or buyer to select which type of relationship they would like to have with that agent. This form is not an employment agreement. For example, an employment agreement with a seller is a listing, which AAR does not have, local associations do. An employment agreement with the buyer could be the AAR Right to, buyer-broker exclusive employment agreement. The same form should not be signed by both a buyer and a seller. Reverends 0209. Request for loan information, used for sellers to obtain necessary information from the lender to share with the buyer when the loan can be assumed by the buyer, and for the seller to determine proceeds from the transaction. Reverend 491. Residential buyer's inspection notice and seller's response, BINSAR. Directly addresses the inspection period in the residential purchase contract and provides for the buyer to respond to a home inspection, whether it is to request repairs, waive the inspection, or to cancel the contract. This form also provides for the seller to respond to any requests from the buyer. Reverend Mazo 2-17. Residential income property. Addendum to Residential Seller's Property Disclosure Statement, 1-4 units, is an addendum to the Residential Seller's Property Disclosure Statement to address disclosure issues in a transaction involving 1 to 4 units of income property. Reverend Cha or 8OU7. Residential income property addendum to residential resale real estate purchase contract, 1-4 units. An addendum to the contract in a transaction involving 1 to 4 units of income property. The addendum requires the seller to complete an AAR residential income property addendum to the Residential Seller's Property Disclosure Statement, 807, and provide additional information. The addendum also addressed the transfer of any domain name, signage, as well as rents, deposits, property managers, and registration of rental property with the county assessor. Reverend Arts 0807, Residential Lease Agreement, used by tenants and landlords to rent a residential dwelling, Reverend 0214. Residential Lease Owner's Property Disclosure Statement, for owners to complete when offering their home for lease. The use of this form is not a legal requirement. This form provides an opportunity for the owners to disclose information about the condition of the property being offered for lease and should not be completed by the property manager. 8811. Residential Sellers Property Disclosure Statement, SPDS. For sellers to complete when offering their home for sale. The use of this form is not a legal requirement, but many firms require sellers listing with them to use it. This form provides an opportunity for the sellers to disclose information about the condition of the property being offered for sale and should not be completed by the realtor and Ratzer. Revermar 02-17. Residential Resale Real Estate Purchase Contract, used for the sale of residential sale. Revermar 02-17. The Seller Compensation Agreement in Arizona is a written addendum that spells out what, if any, amount the seller agrees to pay directly to the buyer's broker for their services in the transaction. It is usually attached to the purchase contract and makes clear that the seller, not just the listing broker, is responsible for a specific fee or percentage to the buyer's broker. This form ensures transparency, creates a binding agreement for payment, and allows the buyer's broker to rely on the seller's promise of compensation, especially important under the new rules where seller-paid buyer-broker fees are no longer automatic or displayed in the MLS. Seller Financing Addendum, with seller attachment, only one residential property, to be used in a credit transaction, secured by a dwelling when seller is providing financing for only one residential property in any 12-month period. 01-14. Seller Financing Addendum, with seller attachment, 3 or fewer residential properties, to be used in a credit transaction, secured by a dwelling when seller is providing financing for 3 or fewer residential property in any 12-month period. E1-14. Seller Financing Addendum, not secured by a dwelling, to be used when sellers are originating financing for raw land, commercial properties, and other transactions not secured by a dwelling. 1-14. Seller HOA, Condominium Planned Community Information, less than 50 units, enables a seller to more easily comply with law when selling a home in an HOA with less than 50 homes. Pursuant to ARS, Paragraph 33, 1806, and ARS, Paragraph 33, 1260, for planned communities or condos with fewer than 50 units, a seller is obligated to deliver to a buyer, within 10 days after receipt of a written notice of a pending sale, all of the information and documentation listed in those statutes. Revern 0705, Short Sale Addendum to Listing Contract, an addendum to the listing agreement which addresses the information a seller should consider before entering into a short sale agreement. Reverns AAR 2 Parn 17, Short Sale Addendum to the Residential Resale Real Estate Purchase Contract, an addendum to the residential contract for use in a short sale transaction. The short sale addendum provides that the contract is contingent upon an agreement between the seller and the lender, acceptable to both, to sell the home to the buyer for less than the loan amount. Revern 022-17. Short Sale Addendum to Commercial Listing Contract, an addendum to the listing agreement which addresses the information a seller should consider before entering into a short sale agreement. The seller is advised to explore options other than a short sale. 0210. Short Sale Addendum to the Commercial Purchase Contract, an addendum to the commercial contract for use in a short sale transaction. When the parties execute the short sale addendum to the commercial purchase contract, they are agreeing that the contract will be contingent on an acceptable short sale agreement. 0210. Statement of Disposition of Deposits and Accounting, used to provide an itemized list of any all security deposit deductions together with the amount due and payable to the tenant. 0813. Unfulfilled Loan Contingency Notice, a generic form used by a buyer to notify the proper parties of a residential resale real estate contract of an unfulfilled loan contingency. Rev. 02M11. Unrepresented Seller Compensation Consent, an agreement for brokers, agents representing buyers who want to purchase a property from an unrepresented seller and/or when there isn't a listing. This form provides for compensation for the seller to the buyer's broker, check agent. Rev. 0207, vacant land lot purchase contract, used for the sale of lots or large acreage. Rev. 0213, vacant land lot seller's property disclosure statement, similar to the residential SPDS designed for use with land sales. Rev. 807, vacant land lot buyer's due diligence notice and seller's response, used to directly address the inspection period in the vacant land lot purchase contract. This form is used by the buyer to respond to an inspection, to request repairs, waive the inspection, or to cancel the contract. The form also provides for the seller to respond to any requests from the buyer. Rev. 0213, vacant land lot purchase contract addendum regarding subdivided or unsubdivided land, used when certain types of land parcels are being sold. Rev. 807,